Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me.
The world was unraveling, and President Daniel Hartman stood at the center of its collapse. The xenovirus had hit like a silent storm, sweeping through every major city in the blink of an eye. Hospitals were overrun, quarantine zones sprouted like wildfires, and governments around the world were falling apart under the weight of the chaos. New York, Paris, Beijing, no city was spared. The virus moved faster than any could have predicted, and its effects were devastating. Symptoms started as minor fevers and chills, but within days, organs would begin to shut down, and those infected would be dead before they could even grasp what had happened. The grim projections gave Earth little time. Weeks, at best, before the entire human population would be wiped out. Hartman sat in the Oval Office, the weight of the world pressing down on him in a way he'd never felt before. He was a man of action, a former military officer who had led soldiers into battle, yet now, the enemy was invisible, relentless, and indifferent to any show of force. As he stared at the holographic projection before him, displaying red zones marking the virus's spread across continents, he felt the crushing responsibility of his role. There were no easy decisions left. Every day, he received reports from scientists and medical professionals, each more dire than the last. There was only one glimmer of hope: a rare mineral, located on the alien world of Xiphos 9, could serve as the key ingredient for a cure, but the path to Xiphos 9 was fraught with danger. The planet was under the control of the Ctharans, a hostile alien race, and retrieving the mineral would require more than just courage, it required sacrifice. Hartman knew what had to be done, and as he looked out the window at the skyline of Washington, D.C., now eerily quiet under quarantine, he came to his decision that he would lead the mission himself. The world watched in stunned silence as President Hartman made the announcement. Broadcast live to billions, his face was steely but resolute. "I know the risks," he said, his voice carrying the weight of a man who understood the gravity of his choice. "But there is no greater honor than to fight for humanity's survival. This mission is our only chance, and I will not ask anyone to make the ultimate sacrifice unless I am willing to do so myself." His advisors were against it. "Mr. President, you can't possibly." "I can," Hartman interrupted, his tone final. "And I will. Humanity needs a symbol of hope, and I intend to give them one." The preparations were swift. A small team was assembled, handpicked from the best of Earth's military, scientific, and medical communities. Leading the scientific effort was Dr. Carvix, a Ctharan defector who had been living on Earth for years. The aliens' relationship with Earth had always been uneasy, and Carvix had faced scrutiny, but now, his knowledge of Xiphos 9 and the Ctharan defenses made him indispensable. Hartman's final act before leaving Earth was a private goodbye to his daughter, Ellie. She had followed in his footsteps, becoming a doctor, and now she was on the front lines, fighting the virus in the overcrowded quarantine zones. "You don't have to do this," Ellie said, her voice breaking as they stood in the dim light of his private quarters. Her protective gear, smeared with the evidence of long hours in the field, only made her look more vulnerable. "I do," Hartman replied, placing a hand on her shoulder. "The world needs the cure, and someone has to lead this mission." Tears welled in Ellie's eyes, and she hugged him fiercely, as if holding him could keep him from going. "Please come back," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'll do everything I can," he promised, though they both knew the odds were slim. With the world watching, President Hartman and his team boarded the Atlas, the most advanced spacecraft Earth had ever built. Its sleek, angular design bristled with advanced weaponry and technology, a stark contrast to the quiet desperation inside. As the Atlas broke through Earth's atmosphere and ascended into the vast expanse of space, Hartman felt a pang of uncertainty. He had never left Earth before. But this mission wasn't about him, it was about humanity's survival. "Captain, we've entered Xiphos 9's quadrant," said Commander Lucas Stone, his second-in-command, as the ship's screens flickered with alien star maps. "Any sign of the Ctharans?" Hartman asked, his voice calm despite the tension. "None yet, but we should remain on high alert. Their patrols are unpredictable." Hartman nodded. He had read every briefing about Xiphos 9 and the Ctharans, but nothing could have prepared him for the sight of the planet as it came into view. Xiphos 9 was a hellish world, its skies swirling with violet clouds and its surface cracked and barren. Lightning storms flickered in the distance, illuminating jagged mountain ranges and toxic rivers. It was a landscape born of nightmares, and Hartman knew that the dangers lurking on the planet's surface were far worse than what they could see from orbit. "Prepare for landing," Hartman ordered. The Atlas descended through the violent atmosphere, buffeted by winds that seemed determined to tear the ship apart. But its shields held, and soon, they touched down on a rocky outcropping overlooking a vast valley. "Welcome to Xiphos 9, Dr. Karvik said, his alien features tight with concern. "It's worse than I remembered." The team exited the ship, their suits protecting them from the planet's toxic environment. The air was heavy with the stench of sulfur, and the ground beneath their feet was unstable, shifting slightly with each step. Hartman's team fanned out, weapons drawn, as they began their trek toward the Ctharan outpost where the mineral was stored. "Keep your eyes open," Hartman said. "We're in hostile territory now." The journey to the outpost was treacherous. The planet's terrain was unforgiving, with cliffs that crumbled underfoot and valleys teeming with strange, predatory creatures. At one point, a pack of reptilian beasts ambushed the team, their scaled bodies shimmering in the dim light of the planet's twin suns. The team fought them off with precision, but Lieutenant Samantha Reyes was injured in the attack, her suit torn by the creature's claws. Hartman rushed to her side, helping her to her feet as she winced in pain. "You okay?" he asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "I'll live," Reyes grunted, her face pale but determined. "Just a scratch." Hartman admired her grit, but he knew they couldn't afford to lose anyone. The team pressed on, navigating the hostile landscape with increasing difficulty. As they approached the Ctharan outpost, the tension grew palpable. They knew that the real danger lay ahead. "Karvik, are you sure about this?" Stone asked, his voice tight with suspicion. "You've been away from this planet for years. How do we know your intel is still good?" Karvik's alien eyes narrowed. "I may be a defector, Commander, but I still know my people. They haven't changed in centuries. The outpost will be heavily guarded, but we can bypass the security systems if we move quickly." Hartman stepped between them before the situation could escalate. "Enough. We need to focus. If we don't get that mineral, billions will die. Let's get this done." They reached the outskirts of the Ctharan outpost as the alien night began to fall. The towering structure was illuminated by strange, glowing runes that pulsed with an eerie light. Alien guards patrolled the perimeter, their insect-like bodies covered in heavy armor. Hartman's team moved into position, using the terrain for cover as Karvik's worked to disable the outpost's security systems. Almost there, Karvik's muttered, his fingers flying over the alien console. A sudden alarm blared through the night, and Hartman's heart sank. "We've been made," Stone barked, raising his weapon as the first wave of Ctharan soldiers descended on them. Here they come. The battle erupted with brutal intensity. The Ctharans fought with a ferocity that matched their terrifying appearance, their weapons unleashing deadly energy blasts that cut through the night. Hartman fired back, his pulse rifle kicking against his shoulder as he took down one alien after another. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and burning metal as both sides clashed in the chaos. The battle unfolded in chaos, blinding flashes of light and the sounds of weapons discharging echoing through the alien night. President Hartman moved with practiced precision, his pulse rifle a natural extension of his body as he fired on the Ctharans. One by one, the insectoid creatures fell, their chitinous armor shattering under the concentrated fire from his team. But for every alien they downed, more seemed to swarm from the shadows, their numbers unrelenting. Commander Stone shouted over the din of battle, "We're being overrun, Mr. President. We need to fall back." Hartman gritted his teeth, eyes scanning the perimeter. They couldn't afford to retreat now. The outpost was within reach, and behind those walls was the key to humanity's survival. If they turned back, billions would die. He spotted Karvix huddled over a control panel, still desperately trying to deactivate the outpost's defenses. The alien defector was their only shot at getting in. "Hold your ground," Hartman ordered, his voice resolute. "Give Karvix more time." Lieutenant Reyes limped over, her suit still damaged from the earlier attack, but her weapon was steady as she took up a defensive position. "I'm not letting these bastards take us down, sir." Hartman nodded in appreciation before firing off another round. His pulse rifle cut through the alien ranks, but it was becoming clear they were outnumbered. A Ctharan warrior, taller and more heavily armored than the others, charged toward Hartman, its jagged weapon raised. The president stood his ground, leveling his rifle, but before he could pull the trigger, Commander Stone leaped into action, tackling the creature mid-strike. The two tumbled to the ground in a flurry of limbs and snarls. Stone plunged a knife into the creature's exposed throat, twisting it until the alien stilled. He rose, panting, and gave Hartman a quick nod before rejoining the fight. The team was holding on by a thread, but Hartman could see the fatigue in their movements, the desperation setting in. "Now, Karvix!" Hartman shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Karvix's hands moved with lightning speed, his alien digits dancing over the control panel. With a sudden hum, the lights surrounding the outpost flickered, and the security turrets powered down. The main gate slid open with a grinding noise, and for a moment, Hartman allowed himself a breath of relief. "Inside!" Hartman called out, motioning for his team. "Move, move!" The survivors sprinted toward the gate, firing off cover shots as they retreated into the outpost. Hartman was the last to enter, pausing only long enough to throw a grenade into the swarm of Ctharans still advancing on their position. The explosion rocked the ground, sending alien bodies flying in all directions. The gate slammed shut behind him, sealing them inside the outpost. The silence was almost deafening compared to the cacophony outside. Hartman scanned the dimly lit interior, his weapon still raised. The walls were covered in the same glowing runes that had adorned the exterior, casting an eerie light across the metallic floors. The air was thick with the smell of burning ozone and alien tech. "Are we clear?" Hartman asked, his breath ragged. "For now," Karvix replied, his voice strained. "But we won't be alone for long. The Ctharans will breach those gates sooner or later. We need to find the mineral and get out." Commander Stone and Lieutenant Reyes took up defensive positions, their eyes on the corridor leading deeper into the facility. Hartman glanced at his wrist display, tracking the location Karvix had given them. "It's just ahead," Karvix said, gesturing toward a large door at the end of the corridor. "The storage chamber. But I should warn you, this is where the Ctherans store their most valuable assets. The mineral won't be unguarded." "Nothing ever is," Hartman muttered. They moved quickly, their footsteps echoing ominously in the empty hallway. The door to the storage chamber loomed large and imposing, sealed with layers of alien tech. Karvix moved to the control panel beside it, his hands working quickly to bypass the lock. After a tense moment, the door slid open, revealing a cavernous room filled with crates and strange machinery. Hartman's eyes were immediately drawn to the centerpiece of the room, a massive containment unit, glowing faintly with the same runic symbols. Inside, the precious mineral they had come for, the key to the cure, floated in a transparent chamber, pulsing with energy. "That's it," Karvix breathed, awe in his voice. "That's what we need." Lieutenant Reyes moved to inspect the containment unit, running a scanner over the mineral. "It's stable," she confirmed. "We can extract it, but we need to be careful. This thing is volatile. One wrong move, and it could blow." "Great," Commander Stone muttered. "Just what we need, more things that can kill us." Hartman stepped forward, taking in the sight of the mineral. It was beautiful, in a way, alien and strange, yet holding the hope of billions within its crystalline structure. He knew they had to act quickly, but something about the silence in the room felt wrong. "Karvix, are we alone?" Hartman asked, his instincts on edge. The alien glanced around, his brow furrowing. "There shouldn't be anyone here." "The Ctherans wouldn't." Before he could finish, a deep, guttural voice echoed from the shadows. "Foolish humans. Did you think you could simply walk in and steal from us?" Hartman spun around, his pulse rifle aimed toward the source of the voice. From the darkness stepped a Ctheran unlike any they had faced so far. He was taller, more imposing, and his armor was adorned with intricate designs, marking him as a figure of importance. In his hand, he held a blade that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly energy. "Zathul," Karvix whispered, his voice filled with dread. "He's one of the Ctheran warlords. We're not equipped to fight him." Hartman's heart pounded in his chest. Zathul was blocking their only exit, and there was no way they could take him down in a head-on fight. But they had no choice. This was their only chance to secure the cure. "Get the mineral," Hartman ordered, keeping his weapon trained on Zathul. "We'll hold him off." Stone and Reyes immediately began working on the containment unit, but Zathul was already moving. He was impossibly fast for his size, closing the distance between them in a matter of seconds. Hartman fired, but the alien warlord deflected the shots with his blade, the energy blasts dissipating harmlessly against the weapon's surface. Zathul swung his blade in a wide arc, forcing Hartman to dive out of the way. The weapon sliced through a nearby console, sending sparks flying. Hartman rolled to his feet, firing again, but it was clear they were outmatched. "Stone, Reyes, how's it going back there?" Hartman called out, desperation creeping into his voice. "Almost there." Reyes shouted, her hands working furiously to extract the mineral. Zathul advanced again, this time targeting Stone. The commander barely managed to dodge the warlord's strike, but the force of the blow sent him crashing into a wall, dazed. Hartman rushed forward, drawing the warlord's attention away from Stone. "I admire your spirit, human," Zathul growled, his voice dripping with malice. "But you will not leave this planet alive." "We'll see about that," Hartman shot back, firing again. The battle raged on, each moment more desperate than the last. Hartman knew they couldn't hold out much longer. Just as Zathul raised his blade for a killing blow, Reyes shouted, "Got it." Hartman didn't hesitate. "Fall back." The team sprinted toward the door, but Zathul was right behind them. Hartman tossed a grenade into the warlord's path, buying them precious seconds as the explosion rocked the chamber. They barely made it through the door before it slammed shut behind them. "That won't hold him for long," Karvix warned, his eyes wide with fear. "Doesn't need to," Hartman replied, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "We just need to get to the Atlas." The team raced through the corridors, the sounds of Zathul's pursuit growing louder behind them. By the time they reached the ship, their lungs were burning, and their bodies were pushed to the limit. "Get us out of here." Hartman barked as they boarded the Atlas. The ship's engines roared to life, and within moments, they were lifting off, escaping Xiphos 9's deadly atmosphere. Hartman collapsed into a seat, his body trembling from adrenaline and exhaustion. The mineral was secure, but the cost had been high. "Course set for Earth," Stone said, his voice weary. Hartman nodded, staring out the viewport as Xiphos 9 disappeared into the distance. They had done the impossible, they had the cure. But as the weight of everything they had lost settled over him, Hartman knew his fight wasn't over. It never would be.